one way or the other. The Germans also have this well-known battle hymn they call the Baritus. This chant doesn't just fire them up, but also serves as a pre-battle prediction. The way the war cry resonates on the battlefield either sends chills down the enemy's spine or spooks the Germans themselves. They don't just consider it as a collective cheer, but as a symphony of bravery. They aim for a guttural, irregular bellow, using their shields as amplifiers to give it a more resounding, deeper tone. As for me, I subscribe to the idea that the Germans have always kept their bloodline pure, without any mixing with foreigners, making them unique and distinct from any other nation. A side effect of this is their consistently recognizable physical traits. Those intense blue eyes, fiery red hair, and towering bodies. That, mind you, can pack a punch, but only when they really push themselves. They're not the best at enduring hard labor or anything too strenuous, and they can't handle heat or thirst too well. But thanks to their homeland's weather, they're pretty good at dealing with the cold, and their not-so-fertile land has made them accustomed to hunger. Germany's landscape is a mixed bag, but mostly it's either thick with gnarly forests or bogged down by icky swamps. It tends to be more soggy on the side facing Gaul and breezier on the Noricum and Pannonia end. It's a decent place for growing grains, but don't even think about trying fruit trees. There's a fair bit of livestock, but don't expect any award-winning specimens. Even the cattle are a bit on the small side and missing that classic cow look. But the Germans love them anyway because they're basically the only kind of wealth they have. Whether it's a divine blessing or a cosmic joke, they're pretty much broke when it comes to gold and silver. But honestly, I can't say for sure that Germany's devoid of these precious metals since no one's gone digging for them. The locals aren't overly fond of gold and silver. You'll even find silverware gifted to leaders or diplomats being used like plain old pottery at their homes. But those living closest to us do value these metals for trading, and they've become pretty savvy at identifying certain types of our coins. They have a soft spot for old school coins, especially those with grooved edges and two-horse chariot designs. And interestingly, they take silver over gold any day, not because they're silver fans, but because a stack of silver coins makes buying everyday items easier. Iron isn't exactly abundant in Germany either. At least that's what their weaponry suggests. Swords and large lances are a rare sight. Instead, they favor spears, or framii in their lingo, with small, narrow blades that are razor-sharp and versatile for up-close or distance fighting. Their horse riders pack a shield and spear, but the foot soldiers also fling javelins, a bunch of them. These guys can chuck them a mile, despite being practically naked or just wearing light, short cloaks. There's nothing flashy about their gear, only their shields get a personalized color makeover. You'll see a breastplate, once in a blue moon, and the occasional helmet of metal or hide. Their horses are nothing to write home about, lacking in speed and beauty, and aren't exactly dressage material. They're ridden straight or with a slight right turn, but they do keep their formation tight. No stragglers here. In general, they're more about the foot power than horsepower. So you'll see foot soldiers keeping pace with the cavalry, thanks to their lightning-fast sprinting abilities. From all the young warriors, the best are selected and positioned with the cavalry at the front lines. Exactly 100 from each district are chosen, earning them the title the 100 back home. This number has become more of a badge of honor now. Their battle formations look like a bunch of wedges. Retreating isn't seen as cowardly as long as you circle back for an attack. They make a point to retrieve the bodies of their fallen comrades, even in the heat of battle. Tossing your shield is seen as the ultimate humiliation, and anyone who does this gets banned from any community events or ceremonies. There have been many who, after losing face on the battlefield, chose to end it all by hanging themselves to escape the shame. The Germans picked their kings based on noble birth and their leaders for their bravery. Kings don't rule with an iron fist. It's not that kind of scene. Leaders inspire more by setting the bar high with their relentless energy, courage, and by leading the charge in battle. The heavy stuff, like capital punishment, imprisonment, or even flogging, is left to the priests. And it's not just about punishment or following orders. They believe it's like serving the will of their battle god. In fact, they bring along certain figures and symbols from their holy groves right into the thick of the fight. One thing that really stokes their bravery is that their squads aren't randomly thrown together. Each unit consists of members from the same family or clan, and right there beside them are their nearest and dearest, so close that they can hear their women wailing and kids crying. These are the folks they respect the most and whose praise they crave. They go to their mothers and wives for wound tending, and the women are fearless in tallying up and comparing the battle scars. These women also bring food to the warriors, cheering them on all the while. There are records of wavering armies on the brink of defeat being rallied back into the fight by their women. These ladies get all heroic, baring their chests and reminding the men of the looming threat of enslavement, a fate the Germans dread more for their women than themselves. You can actually get a stronger grip on these tribes by demanding highborn girls as part of any hostage deal. But there's more. The Germans believe women have a sacred touch and a knack for prophecy, so they don't scoff at seeking their counsel or taking their advice lightly. Back in the day when Emperor Vespasian was in charge, many Germans revered a woman named Veleda as a sort of deity. Even before that, they held women like Orinia in similar high regard. And it wasn't just some sort of flattery or trying to make goddesses out of women. They genuinely respected them. Above all, the Germans are big fans of Mercury. They don't even bat an eye at including human sacrifices in his honor during certain festivals. But for Hercules and Mars, they're a little more mainstream and just offer up animal sacrifices. Some of the Suebi tribe also pay homage to Isis. Now, I'm not sure how this foreign deity snuck into their worship, but the goddess's emblem, designed like a lightweight battleship, kind of gives away that it's an imported faith. The Germans find it kind of tacky to encase gods within walls or sketch them to resemble human faces. They prefer their sacred places to be woods and groves and believe in an unseen divine presence that can only be perceived with reverential eyes. Now, when it comes to omens and casting lots, these folks take it seriously. Their procedure is pretty straightforward. They chop off a branch from a nut-bearing tree, slice it into strips, mark them with different signs, and randomly toss them onto a white cloth. Then the state priest, if it's a public consultation, or the family head, if it's private, prays to the gods and picks up 3 strips, interpreting their meaning from the signs etched on them. If the lots veto an endeavor, they shelf the matter for the day. If approved, they seek further confirmation through bird omen interpretation. Speaking of birds, while the Germans use the common method of observing bird cries and flight for omens, they've also got a unique horse-based omen reading practice. These sacred horses, kept in the woods and groves I mentioned, are pure white and haven't been subjected to any labor. They're hitched to a sacred chariot by the priest and the king or chieftain, who then interpret the horse's neighs and snorts for omens. No other form of divination holds more sway among the Germans, including the nobles and priests who believe they are mere servants of the gods, while the horses share their divine counsel. There's also another way they predict the outcomes of serious wars. They somehow capture a warrior from the enemy side, arm him with his native weapons, and pit him against one of their own champions. The victor of this one-on-one is believed to foreshadow the result of the war. In Germanic societies, minor matters are deliberated by the chiefs, while the whole community debates on major issues. However, the chiefs consider every subject in advance, even when the commons have the decision-making power. The community assembles on specific days, usually shortly after the new moon or before the full moon, believed to be the most propitious times for any undertaking. They track time not by days like us, but by nights, which they consider to usher in the day. Everything from their engagements to appointments is scheduled according to this system. One downside of their independent nature is their untimeliness. A summons isn't seen as a command, so they might take 2 or 3 days to gather for a meeting. Once the crowd settles, they sit fully armed. Priests, who have the power to enforce obedience during these gatherings, command silence. The king or the state chief is then given a hearing, with the weight given to his words dependent on his age, rank, military distinction, or eloquence. The people show their dissent to a proposal by shouting, while approval is expressed by clashing their spears, this weapon rattling being their preferred form of agreement. These assemblies also handle criminal charges, especially those with capital punishment at stake. The mode of execution varies with the crime. Traitors and deserters are hanged on trees, while cowards, shirkers, and sodomites are pushed under a wicker hurdle into a bog's slimy mud. The belief is that state offenders should be made public examples, while shameful deeds should be hidden from sight. Lesser offences have penalties too, usually fines in the form of horses or cattle. Part of this fine goes to the king or state, and part to the victim or their relatives. In these same assemblies, they elect officials, including the magistrates who administer justice in districts and villages. Each magistrate is aided by 100 assessors, chosen from the people, who both advise him and lend authority to his decisions. In Germanic societies, individuals are always armed when conducting any public or private business. However, there's a rule that no one can carry weapons until the state authorities verify their competence in using them. Upon passing this test, either one of the chiefs, the young man's father, or another relative presents him with a shield and a spear in the presence of the assembly. This moment, akin to the toga ceremony in Roman culture, marks his public transition from being a member of a household to becoming a citizen. Boys can attain the rank of chief while still in their teens due to particularly noble birth or their father's great services. These young chiefs are attached to stronger, more mature individuals who were approved years before, and they take pride in being part of a chief's retinue. Ranks within these retinues are determined by the chief, leading to a competitive spirit among the followers to earn the highest place in the chief's favor, as well as among the chiefs to have the most robust and valiant retinue. The size and quality of a chief's retinue not only bring prestige within his nation, but also earn him recognition in neighboring states, often influencing the outcome of wars. On the battlefield, it's considered disgraceful for a chief to be outdone in courage by his followers, and for followers not to match their chief's courage. Followers are obliged to defend their chief, letting him take credit for their heroic acts, and their ultimate goal is to fight for their chief, not victory. The chiefs fight for victory, the followers for their chief. Many noble youths, when their native land is experiencing prolonged peace, seek out other tribes engaged in war. They believe that renown is easier to win among dangers, and that a large body of retainers can be maintained only through war and violence. Their demands on their chief's generosity, their desire for a coveted war horse or a blood-stained spear from a defeated enemy, and their acceptance of plentiful, if homely, meals in lieu of pay reflect this ethos. The resources for this generosity come from war and plunder. Germans are less inclined to patiently farm and wait for a harvest than to challenge a foe and risk wounds. Accumulating slowly through hard work is viewed as tame and spiritless when they can gain swiftly through the shedding of blood. In Germanic societies, when they're not engaged in warfare, individuals spend some time hunting, but most of their time in idleness, primarily sleeping and eating. The boldest and most warlike have no regular jobs, as domestic and agricultural tasks are left to the women, the elderly, and the weaker members of the family. This lifestyle seems inconsistent, as they simultaneously enjoy idleness but disdain peace. It's a common practice for chiefs to receive gifts of cattle or agricultural produce from citizens who make these voluntary contributions as tokens of respect and to cater to their chief's needs. Gifts from neighboring states, whether from individuals or communities, are particularly valued. These can include select horses, fine weapons, metal discs, and collars. Germans have also learned to appreciate monetary gifts. Notably, Germanic people never inhabit cities and avoid having their houses adjoin one another. Instead, they live scattered, settling wherever a spring, plain, or grove appeals to them. Their villages are not constructed like Roman settlements with adjacent interconnected buildings. Every homeowner leaves an open space around his house, possibly as a safeguard against fires, or due to a lack of expertise in construction. They don't use stones or tiles for building. Instead, they use roughly cut timber, which appears unattractive and crude. However, they meticulously cover some parts with clay of such purity and brightness that it resembles painting or colored design. They also have the practice of digging underground caves, which they cover with large amounts of manure and use both as shelters from winter cold and as storage for their produce. These subterranean refuges mitigate the harshness of the frosts. In case of invasion, while the open land may be ravaged, these hidden excavations either remain unknown or escape detection because they are difficult to find without a thorough search. In Germany, the universal dress is a cloak, fastened with a brooch, or, if unavailable, a thorn. They can spend entire days by the fire wearing only this garment. To wear undergarments, especially ones that are form-fitting and trace every limb, is seen as a mark of considerable wealth. They also wear skins of wild animals. Those living near the river borders do so without much concern for aesthetics, while tribes living farther away show some refinement in their choice of skins. The latter carefully select animals and decorate the hides with patches of skin from creatures found in the far-off oceans. Women's clothing differs from men's in that women often wear linen outer garments with a purple pattern, and their upper garments are sleeveless, leaving their arms and parts of their chest near the shoulders exposed. The marriage code among the Germans is highly strict, and this aspect of their morality is especially commendable. They are among the few barbarian societies where each man is generally content with one wife. A few men, due to their high status, may take more than one wife, not out of desire, but due to the numerous matrimonial alliances offered to them. Interestingly, in their culture, the dowry is provided by the husband to the wife, not vice versa. The dowry isn't composed of fancy or decorative items for the wife, but practical things like oxen, a horse with its bridle, or a shield, spear, and sword. This exchange of gifts symbolizes their sacred bond of union, blessed through mystic rites under the presiding deities of marriage. Women in these societies are not considered exempt from manly virtues or the risks of warfare. Hence, through these wedding gifts, a woman is reminded that she enters her husband's home to share in his toils and perils in both peace and war. This concept is symbolized through the gifts of the team of oxen, the ready-for-rider horse, and the arms. She is expected to live her life and raise her children based on these principles, keeping these gifts intact for her children, who will then pass them on to the next generation. German folks really value the virtue of their women. Public displays of lust or wild parties? Nope, not their thing. Even secret love letters are unheard of. Adultery? That's super rare. And if a wife is found guilty, the punishment is harsh. The husband shaves her head, strips her, and kicks her out of the house, even giving her a public flogging. A woman like that, no matter how pretty or rich, is unlikely to find another hubby. Germans don't see any humor in such behaviors, nor do they think cheating is cool or modern. In some parts, only virgins are allowed to marry, so a woman gives her all to her husband. She doesn't love him just for who he is, but because he represents the idea of marriage. They think killing or limiting the number of kids is wicked. Over there, they believe good manners and morals are better than any laws. Kids in Germany grow up tough, often going without clothes and getting dirty, which might explain why they're so sturdy. Mums nurse their own babies instead of handing them off to babysitters. Youngsters from all walks of life grow up together, hanging out with the same flock and living on the same floor until they grow up. Men and women take their sweet time to marry, making sure they're in their prime. This approach ensures that their kids inherit their robustness. Uncles regard their sisters' sons as highly as they do their own sons. In some tribes, this bond is even considered tighter than that between father and son. The main heirs and successors are a man's own kids, as there are no wills. If a man doesn't have kids, his brothers and then uncles are the next to inherit. Having many relatives and connections gives a man greater authority when he's old. Having no kids isn't considered cool in Germany. In terms of feuds and friendships, the heirs are expected to take over both from their dad or kin, but these feuds don't last forever and can even be settled for crimes as serious as murder by giving a fixed number of cattle or sheep as compensation. The entire family receives the compensation, which is good for the community because private feuds can be dicey in a society that cherishes freedom. The Germans love a good party. In fact, they consider it bad form to turn anyone away from their doorstep. The host lays out the best spread they can afford, and after the meal, guides the guest to the next house where they can get more food. They don't care if you showed up uninvited or if they don't know you. Everyone is treated equally when it comes to their hospitality. When it's time to leave, the guest can ask for anything they want as a parting gift. And it goes both ways. The host can also ask for a gift in return. They love giving and receiving presents, but they don't feel obligated to return a gift. Germans aren't early risers.
When comfy softness beads meet fragrant scent beads, they blend together to create an incredible feeling beyond cozy called Cozy. New Downy Comfy Cozy breathes life into your laundry.
Try Nature Made. Made with quality, made to care for you every day.
Offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 per month, even with a single line forever.
Germans aren't early risers. After they wake up, often after sunrise, they take a bath, usually with warm water. Makes sense given their long winters. Then they sit down to eat, each at their own table and chair. After breakfast, they either go to work or, more likely, head off to a feast. They carry their weapons around all the time. They can drink for days, and it's not seen as a bad thing. Arguments do happen during these drinking sprees, and they can get violent. However, it's also during these feasts that they discuss important issues like resolving feuds, arranging marriages, choosing leaders, and even deciding on peace or war. They believe people are most honest when they've had a few drinks, and so everything that's been said is then reconsidered the next day when everyone's sober. This way, they get the best of both worlds. Their preferred drink is a kind of homemade beer made from barley or other grains that kind of taste like wine. Those living closer to the Rhine or the Danube also get to drink actual wine. As for food, they keep it simple, some wild fruits, fresh game, and curdled milk. No need for fancy cooking or appetizers, but when it comes to drinking, they aren't as disciplined. If you keep their cups filled, they'll drink until they drop. It's as if they're more likely to be defeated by their love for alcohol than by any enemy. The Germans have a pretty unique public entertainment. At every party, you'll see a bunch of naked young guys who've trained for this, dancing around swords and spears pointed at them. Skill and grace come from practice, but these guys aren't paid performers. The crowd's applause is their only reward. Something you wouldn't expect. They are serious about dice games, and they play them sober. They bet big and can be so desperate to win that they'll even wager their freedom on a game. Losers become slaves willingly, allowing themselves to be sold no matter how young or strong they might be. They call it honor, but honestly, it's just a bad habit. These self-made slaves are then traded, as even their masters find the idea of winning someone's freedom somewhat disgraceful. Slaves in Germany don't have the same duties as slaves elsewhere. Each has their own place and responsibilities. The master just asks for a certain amount of grain, livestock, or cloth, kind of like a tenant. Anything else, like housework, is done by the housewife and her children. It's not common for slaves to be flogged or punished with hard work. Instead, they're more likely to be killed outright in a fit of rage, like an enemy. The crazy part? There's no consequence for the master. Freed slaves don't fare much better. They hardly have any influence, except in tribes ruled by kings, where they can hold a higher status than even free men and nobles. In general, though, the low status of freed slaves is seen as proof of real freedom. You won't see Germans investing money to earn interest. They just don't get it. And frankly, their ignorance is more effective than any law. They divide land among themselves based on their numbers and rank. Each year they change the lands they farm. Despite having ample fertile land, they aren't making full use of it because they don't work hard enough. They don't bother planting orchards, fencing meadows, or irrigating gardens. They just want the land to yield crops. Their year is divided into 3 seasons: winter, spring, and summer. They don't know what autumn is, let alone the bounty it brings. When it comes to funerals, they keep it simple. The bodies of notable people are burned with specific types of wood. They don't throw clothes or spices into the pyre, just the deceased's weapons and maybe their horse. The grave is a mound of turf. They don't believe in grand stone monuments. Tears and grief are shown for a short while, but deep sorrow lingers. It's acceptable for a woman to express her sadness openly, while men are expected to keep their grief inside. Now, that was a general take on the origins and customs of the Germans, but each tribe within Germany has its own flavor, so let's dive into that. We'll also talk about those who packed their bags and moved from Germany to Gaul. Julius Caesar, the big shot himself, said that Gaul used to be more powerful than Germany. So it's likely that some Gauls relocated to Germany. After all, just a river separated them. Hardly a big deal for a strong tribe looking to grab some new territory, especially when nobody owned it or there were no mega empires fighting over it. Between the Hercynian forest and the rivers Rhine and Main, we have the Helvetii, and beyond them the Boii, both Celtic tribes. We still call the place Bohemia, a nod to its history, though the residents have changed over time. Now, whether the Aravishi moved to Pannonia from the Ossi tribe or the Ossi moved to Germany from the Aravishi, we can't really say. They speak the same language, share customs and character. Makes sense when you consider how similar the living conditions were on both sides of the Danube back then. The Treviri and Nervii tribes are proud of their German roots. They think it's cool and doesn't make them look like the not-so-warlike Gauls. Right on the banks of the Rhine, you have the Vangiones, Triboci, and Nemetes, who are definitely of German origin. The Ubi tribe, who have gotten comfy as a Roman colony and even took on the name Agrippinenses after Agrippina, aren't shy about their heritage. They moved across the river a while back and earned Rome's trust. So now they guard the West Bank not as prisoners, but as defenders against intruders. The bravest tribe in Gaul, the Batavi, don't hold much riverbank, but they do own an island in the Rhine. They were part of the Chatti tribe, but moved during a civil war and ended up being part of the Roman Empire. They still have some special privileges, like not having to pay tribute or deal with tax collectors. They're kept for battle, like weapons and armor ready for war. The Mattiaci tribe are under the same Roman control. Even though they are geographically on the German side, they're loyal to Rome. They're just like the Batavi, only their environment makes them even tougher. I wouldn't include the people living in the Agri Decumates among the Germans. They settled between the Rhine and Danube. Basically, a bunch of deadbeats from Gaul and broke adventurers grabbed this unclaimed territory. They only became part of the Roman Empire later, when the defense line moved and the area was considered a province's corner. Next up are the Chatti. Their home begins from the Hercynian forest and is less open and swampy than the flat, sprawling territories of other German tribes. The landscape there is hillier, gradually leveling off as you move. The Hercynian forest kind of babies them all the way, guiding them right up to the plains. Now, the chatty people, they stand out. Tough bodies, strong limbs, intense gazes, and sharp minds, especially for German standards. They're smart cookies who know how to pick their leaders and then actually listen to them. They're good at staying in line, recognizing the right time for a strike, or knowing when to hold back. They can plan out their day, set up defenses for the night, and understand that luck isn't as reliable as good old courage. And here's a rare gem, much like us Romans. They place more trust in their leader than their troops. Their power lies in their infantry, who, along with their weapons, also lug around digging tools and food supplies. While you might see other tribes rushing off into battle, the chatty are in for the long haul. They don't often go for quick charges or skirmishes, which are more of a cavalry's thing with their fast victories and speedy retreats. Going too fast can look like you're scared, while taking your time gives off a vibe of solid courage. They have
Have you been following me for a couple of years but still haven't done your first real estate deal? Well, that's what JT just told me at the gas station. We just bumped into him at. He said, Pace, I've been following you for a couple of years. Man, I really need to get started. Everybody, YouTube is for inspiration. Seminars is for information. ChatGPT is for information. But at some point, you need another human being. You need to join a team of other people that are doing deals in order for you to break through. So what I did recently is I created something called the No One Left Behind Challenge. No One Left Behind Challenge. I don't want to leave anybody behind. I want to take
The Hermann Monument is located in North Germany and commemorates a Germanic war chief who famously led an alliance of Germanic tribes who ambushed and annihilated 3 Roman legions and their auxiliaries in the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD. A victory that would precipitate the Roman Empire's permanent strategic withdrawal from Germania, after which the Romans made no more concerted attempts to conquer Germanic territories east of the Rhine River. Contemporary and modern historians have generally regarded Arminius's victory as Rome's greatest defeat, one of the most decisive battles recorded in military history, and as a turning point in world history. In 98 AD, the Roman historian Cornelius Tacitus wrote a text called About the Origin and Mores of the Germanic Peoples, or Germania as it came to be called. All copies of Germania were lost during the Middle Ages, except for a single handwritten copy which resurfaced in Germany in 1455, but was then brought to Italy. In the 1940s, the Germania was taught in German schools and widely celebrated as a comprehensive account of the ancient Germanic people. The Nazis liked the description of their ancient ancestors as simple, brave, loyal, and pure. Keep in mind that there had been no Germany before 1871, and part of the reason that Germany exists today was thanks to the stories documented in that book by Tacitus. In his telling, the Germans possessed, quote, fierce blue eyes, tawny hair, huge bodies. They prized freedom, scorned luxury, and esteemed military courage above all else. They were people of sturdy values for whom good laws were no substitute for good habits. In the land of the Germans, Tacitus writes, quote, nobody laughs off vice, and to corrupt and to be corrupted is not called modern times. Pointedly, he observed that the Germans were not tainted by intermarriage with any other nations, but rather existed as, quote, a distinct, unadulterated people that resembles only itself. It described a proud, brave, and virtuous people, but the Germans were not one nation. Tacitus lists 50 tribes that were united to defeat Rome. The manuscript made its way to Germany eventually in 2009 for an exhibit marking the 2000th anniversary of Arminius's victory.
Germany had long been a prize target for the Romans, and under the Emperor Augustus, the legions had subdued the local tribes, or so they thought. Many German soldiers had fought with the legions in the European campaigns. One of them, Arminius, had fought so well that the Romans had made him a knight of the empire. Even though he left the army to return to Germany, the Romans still counted him as an ally. But that trust would prove fatal. Arminius told the Roman commander Varus of an uprising in northern Germany and advised him to take 3 legions there to deal with it. When Varus headed north in his trust and ignorance, he was walking into a full-scale rebellion, a rebellion planned by Arminius himself. As a former Roman officer, Arminius knew exactly how to set the trap. Varus had taken with him 3 legions and auxiliaries, about 20,000 soldiers in all, plus 10,000 civilians, the regular camp followers. Varus was so unsuspecting that he took a shortcut through a narrow gap between a forest and a swamp, just as Arminius had hoped.
It began to rain, and they were making their way between the mountain on one side and the marsh to the other side. And then came the initial German attack, which was launched by spears from some distance at first, which killed quite a few of the Romans and put them into confusion.
Arminius had caught the legions at their most vulnerable. On open fields, Roman discipline was almost unbeatable. But in the depths of the German forest, the legions had no answer to the guerrilla tactics of their opponents. The fighting lasted 3 days and ended in a complete disaster for the Romans. 3 entire legions and their followers, some 30,000 people, were slaughtered. Only a few hundred escaped. The news caused panic and disbelief in Rome. Overnight, the empire had lost 3 of its 28 legions, more than 10% of its army. For years afterwards, Augustus roamed the palace screaming, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." Rome would never conquer Germany, but it would send soldiers to the same German forest a few years later to discover the fate of the lost legions.
They came across an awful scene of unburied jumbles of bones lying around and skulls pounded into tree trunks and military equipment scattered everywhere and so forth. And they tried to gather up the bones and give these Roman comrades a decent burial.
In 89, not 1, not 2, but 3 legions were annihilated in a devastating defeat for Roman ambitions, effectively ending Rome's ambitions across the Rhine. And the man who inflicted that defeat is up there.
Arminius, Hermann the German. His colossal statue marks what was thought to be the spot where Varus, the Roman commander, and his 3 legions met their end. In fact, we now know that Arminius won his victory some 50 miles to the northwest of this monument. In 1987, traces of the slaughtered legions and of Arminius' own battle tactics were found at a place called Calcresa. The Romans, some 18,000 in number, were heading for their winter quarters on the Rhine. As they marched, they had thick forest on one side, marshes on the other. The nature of the ambush was this. Arminius had built a Roman-style turf wall on the edge of the forest that served to funnel the Romans along a narrow track. This is a reconstruction of a section of that wall topped with a wooden palisade. And this is a preserved section of the bog that lay on the other side of the track. When the Germans pulled out, the Romans had nowhere to go, except into the bog, where they were either drowned or pursued and butchered.
So my name's Bryant White, and this is Fox Pest Control. I have a co-founder and a brother-in-law, Mike Romney. He and I started this business together, and it was really after several years being in the industry, realizing if you're working for somebody or if you're just on the sales side, that you just lack the control over
So who were these Germanic barbarians?
What am I supposed to do if I want to talk about peace and understanding? But you only understand the language of the soul. If I want to make you understand that the path you just fixed it out. But you only understand the language of the soul. If I want to tell you to leave me and I do not want to do. But you only understand the language of the soul. And let the play that talk. So my song shall become iron and words the mighty roar of war. Feeling my divine anger's arrows, just like all action for the good of all. See my reflection in your eyes, your ancients just begun. So you saw the fire of the furnace, hunger to be hit, and wants to have 100 sisters. In the coldest state of their existence, maybe that's the maddest. In the morris of the red rain, we love brother enemy. I sing my soul for you, the lullaby of obliteration. So I can wake up with a smile. My heart and bliss in my heart, is in my heart.
We need a small business loan fast.
I got this.
Loan cannon!
Oh, there's a better way to get a fast small business loan. Go to ondeck.com, and if approved, get your funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck.
Pull all the pieces together and bring your ideas to life. Level up your app game and improve your process with Azure AI. Quickly build, train, and deploy machine learning models. Deliver amazing experiences using high-quality AI models as APIs. Automate processes with Azure services and get time back in your day. Code, create, and experiment with 12 months of free popular services. Sign up for an Azure free account today.
Existence toxic compact. That's like separate generation. That's what my saga is. The best I can do for you. I see a clue that they are right. This is a powerful something. I love that I know if you think you're higher something. Purification, purification. I
Stripe helps optimize your checkout flow so you can grow your revenue and your team can focus on other things, like your customers. Businesses using Stripe's optimized checkout suite saw 11.9% more revenue on average. Stripe, make progress.
Do you want a ding to your credit? I don't want a ding. So when I needed a new credit card, I went to Experian. See these cards with no ding decline? Your credit won't take a ding if you decline, so you can apply with confidence. Get the Experian app now.
With Cascade Platinum Plus, I have upped my dish game.
See, in that dishwasher.
Watch me.
Platinum Plus gives you the highest standard of clean, even in your machine.
Clean enough for you?
Yeah.
Scrape, load, done. Cascade Platinum Plus.
Explain yourself. You said we should make trying the new Boost Mobile risky, but risk-free. Oh, then we shouldn't use Snake Stop. We should just make a 30-day money-back guarantee. That way, switching from Verizon or AT&T is a no-brainer.
$6 never tasted so good. IHOP's Breakfast Faves combo is now just $6, featuring IHOP's world-famous buttermilk pancakes, crispy hickory smoked bacon, and 2 eggs cooked to order your way. All for just $6, part of the new $6 House Faves menu.
Driving the Nissan Rogue with Google built in is like
Hey Google, turn on Rocky's food.
the ultimate connection. Drive the award-winning Nissan Rogue today.
Hello? This is who? Yes, this is him. I'm sorry about that. I'm doing pretty good. What kind of work? I'm good right now, man. I appreciate it though. No, not right now. I'm kind of pretty busy. All right, but all right, you too. Whoops. Where'd you go?
At AT&T, we know enough in life isn't guaranteed. Like getting alone time. Don't kid yourself. You know what AT&T guarantees? Connectivity you depend on, the deals you want, and the service you deserve. Or we'll make it right.
Unlike other bags, only a Ziploc freezer bag features our exclusive 9 points of protection that helps protect your mom's pozole from leaks and blowouts. SC Johnson.
half a moment of extra.
This privileges makes it easy to earn points and maximize any vacation. Book direct at choicehotels.com.